He dazzled the world by making elephants vanish from the stage of the legendary New York Hippodrome. By the way, the secret has not been revealed so far. The legendary escape artist brought audiences to their feet with death-defying stunts, breaking free from chains, handcuffs, and prison restraints everywhere from Scotland to Russia. He shocked crowds with the famous East India needle trick, swallowing needles and threads without harm, and even allowed himself to be buried alive, only to emerge from the grave moments later. Some daredevils who tried to copy Houdini's dangerous acts paid with their lives. The scale and emotional intensity of his performances can only be compared to today's spectacular productions, from Jubilee and the legendary O and K with Grave by Cirque du Soleil, to the world-famous Christmas spectacular at Radio City Music Hall. At the height of his fame, Houdini became the highest-paid vaudeville performer in America. He mastered illusion and escape better than anyone alive. Yet the greatest mystery of Harry Houdini's life may have been his own mysterious ending at 52 at the height of his fame and power. On Halloween night in 1926, he staged his final disappearance. In Harry Houdini's real life, like in his performances, it was often impossible to separate truth from illusion. For years, Houdini said he had been born in Wisconsin. In reality, the future master magician was born in Budapest as Eric Wise, the son of a rabbi. But at the age of 4, Harry and his family left Austria-Hungary, searching for a better life in the United States. His parents dreamed a military career for their energetic and clever son, but one day, everything changed when a traveling circus in the town of Appleton, after meeting magician Jack Heffler, young Eric became obsessed with magic. He read everything he could find about illusions and soon began creating tricks of his own. He started with locks and clock mechanisms, learning to take them apart and reassemble them blindfolded. People said he seemed to understand the soul of mechanical devices. One of Eric's favorite books was a massive volume about the life of the legendary French magician Eugene Robert Houdin. Inspired, Eric adopted the stage name Houdini, adding an I at the end, which people at the time believed meant follower of Houdin. Thus, Harry Houdini was born. The beginning of his career was anything but glamorous. Like many struggling performers of the late 19th century, he worked small sideshows, card tricks, endurance acts, anything that could earn a few dollars. But Houdini made decision. He would become an escape artist, a performer who amazed audiences by escaping from chains, handcuffs, ropes, and locked spaces. After years of brutal training, Houdini transformed himself into something almost superhuman. He could fold his body in half, control and expand his muscles, and even partially dislocate joints. His flexibility and endurance were extraordinary. One of his first major successes was the famous metamorphosis illusion. Locked inside a sack and sealed in a trunk, Houdini somehow managed to switch places within seconds with his assistant Beatrice Bess-Ronner, who would later become his devoted wife and lifelong partner. Biographers often noted that the couple almost never spent a day apart and rarely argued. Interestingly, they even developed a secret system of signals to stop disagreements before they escalated. If Houdini raised an eyebrow, Bess would immediately go silent. And when Bess gave Harry the same signal, he would walk around the house 4 times to cool off. For several years, Houdini performed with his brother Theo in a touring act called the Houdini Brothers. Escaped from handcuffs, with little money and recognition, the success came slowly. Then one day, everything changed. After escaping naked and handcuffed from a locked prison cell in just minutes, Houdini became a national sensation. Newspapers across America could not stop talking about him. Following his prison fame, Houdini's popularity exploded. In 1900, he left to conquer Europe. London audiences were stunned when Houdini shackled in heavy chains and handcuffs with a 66 pounds weight attached to his body, was thrown into the freezing River Thames, only to emerge safely on the shore minutes later. In Cologne, he casually opened a judge's locked safe. In Russia, he escaped from a Siberian prison transport wagon. When Houdini returned to the United States, he was rich, famous, and internationally celebrated. He immediately purchased a luxurious mansion in Harlem. For more than 30 years, Houdini shocked the world with increasingly dangerous and almost unbelievable stunts. Perhaps his most sensational act was the Chinese water torture cell, the infamous upside-down escape in which he was suspended underwater in a locked glass tank. The act demanded extreme physical endurance. Houdini constantly trained himself to hold his breath for long periods, often practicing underwater in a bathtub while best timed him. Many people came to see whether Houdini would survive this time while playing with death. At least 17 times, he came terrifyingly close to death. Not every stunt went smoothly. During one performance, he was buried alive and nearly suffocated. Assistant put 1 inch of soil excess. In another, he allowed himself to be sealed inside the carcass of a dead whale and almost died there as well. Play with death continued, and only his incredible physical conditioning and iron self-control saved him again and again. As his reputation grew, he constantly had to raise the stakes. His tricks became bigger, riskier, and more dangerous. Few people realize that Houdini was also an aviation pioneer. In 1909, he purchased his own airplane and even toured with it in Australia. Houdini loved life. He enjoyed expensive clothing, fine food, and the luxuries his fame brought him. By the 1920s, he also had become a film producer and silent movie star. Play with death continued, and the stunts became more extreme. The man who challenged death and survived every time. Oh, Houdini. He loved showing off the strength of his stomach muscles and proudly claimed he could withstand any punch to the abdomen. In October 1926, during a tour stop in Montreal, that boast would prove fatal. Several college students came backstage to meet him. Among them was a young boxing champion named J. Gordon Whitehead. He asked whether it was true that Houdini could endure powerful blows to the stomach. Exhausted and lying on a couch in his dressing room, Houdini simply nodded. Without warning, the boxer struck him several times directly in the stomach. Witnesses later recalled that the punches were hard, fast, and clearly serious. Houdini bent in pain and stopped him with the words, "Wait, let me prepare myself," but was already too late. Just days earlier, Houdini had injured his ankle during another dangerous performance. Now a far worse pain tore through his abdomen from the inside. Contracts, audiences, and money would not allow him to cancel the tour. The train ride to Detroit became torture. The pain grew worse, his fever climbed higher, but the iron-willed Houdini still believed he could push through it. In Detroit, sweating and barely able to stand, he walked onto the stage of the Garrick Theater and performed the entire show. Imagine the scene: bright lights, cheering crowds, thunderous applause, while inside his body, a deadly infection was already spreading. After the final curtain, Houdini collapsed. It was the last performance of his life. At the hospital, doctors discovered that his appendix had ruptured several days earlier. He had developed peritonitis, a deadly infection of the abdominal cavity. Medicine in the 1920s could do little to save him. Doctors believed he had less than 10 hours to live. Yet Houdini survived for several more days. On Halloween night, October 31st, 1926, Harry Houdini died at the age of 52. Almost immediately, rumors and conspiracy theories began to spread. Was it possible that Houdini had been murdered? By the time of his death, he had made many enemies, especially among psychics and spiritualists whose dirty play he unveiled. Houdini was destroying their reputations, their fame, and their income. One of his most famous targets was the celebrated medium Mina Crandon. For years, Houdini desperately tried to contact the spirit of his beloved mother. But after realizing the deception behind many seances, he became furious and deeply disillusioned. Ironically, he himself had once used spiritualist-style tricks in his performances, so he knew exactly how fraudulent mediums fooled grieving people during so-called communications with the dead. Just months before his death, he had even testified before Congress in support of banning fortune-telling in Washington, D.C. Among those offended by Houdini's crusade was his own friend, Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of Sherlock Holmes. After the tragic death of his son, became a passionate believer in spiritualism and desperately hoped it could reconnect him with the dead. He publicly insisted that Houdini was not exposing supernatural powers, but secretly possessed them himself. Meanwhile, Houdini partnered with Scientific American and offered a cash prize to anyone who could truly prove supernatural abilities. Lots of rumors were spread that Houdini had been poisoned. Some claimed the attack in Montreal had been carefully arranged and that the boxer had acted on someone's orders. Others suspected doctors at the hospital may have injected him with a mysterious serum. No evidence was ever found. But there was one crucial detail: no autopsy was performed. And because of that fact, the mystery death was never fully resolved. Nearly 90 years after Houdini's death, members of his family repeatedly tried to obtain permission to exhume his body. They hoped modern technology could finally uncover what doctors in 1926 could not. But permission was never granted, and the exhumation never took place. Today, Houdini's grave in New York City remains one of the most famous graves in America. There's one more remarkable detail in Houdini's story. Before his death, Houdini made a secret pact with his wife, Bess. If he ever managed to contact her from the afterlife, he would deliver a hidden code from their favorite song, Rosabelle Believe. For 10 years, every Halloween, Bess held a seance hoping to hear that secret message from her husband. She waited with hope. On the 10th year, she finally said, 10 years is long enough to wait for any man. Then she blew out the candle she had kept burning beside Houdini's photograph since the day he died. But Houdini's admirers and fellow magicians continued the tradition, holding seances every Halloween. Yet, the ghost of the great Houdini has remained silent. What most likely happened? Most modern historians agree on one explanation. Harry Houdini was already suffering from appendicitis. The punches in Montreal did not directly cause the illness, but they worsened his condition and made him ignore the warning signs. Driven by stubbornness and an obsession with performing at any cost, Houdini continued appearing on stage for too long and delayed seeking medical help until it was too late. In the end, it was probably not a conspiracy that killed him. It was his belief in his own endurance, his refusal to stop performing, a ruptured appendix, and doctors who saw him too late. He escaped from locks, chains, prison cells, crates, and even graves. Ironically, while being rich, he received a fatal stomach punch series for free. A man who spent his entire life making the impossible possible was finally defeated by the simplest enemy of all, time. Perhaps that was the most tragic illusion of his life. One thing is certain. Harry Houdini remains one of the most fascinating figures of the early 20th century. And just like his greatest escapes, we may never truly know how he left this world or whether he managed to reach the next one. If you enjoy this story, please like it. It would be great to see in comments what you think about Houdini life and death. And thanks for watching.